The year was 2187, and Earth had finally seen peace after decades of war with distant alien worlds. Captain David Rodriguez stepped off the transport ship at Europa Station, his military boots echoing through the metal corridors he once called home. After 20 years of service, he was finally retiring from the Terran Defense Force. The space station looked different now. Where once there were only human faces, he now saw beings from other worlds walking alongside soldiers and civilians. The peace treaty had changed everything. Trade routes opened, cultural exchanges began, and former enemies were learning to coexist. David made his way to the command center, where General Harrison waited for him with a warm smile. The old man had been like a father to David, guiding him through the worst battles of the war. "Welcome home, soldier," the general said, placing a hand on David's shoulder. "You've served with honor. The entire galaxy knows what you did during the peace talks." David had been one of the few humans who could communicate with the Zephyrians, the alien race they had fought for so long. His ability to understand their customs and speak their language had helped end the bloodshed. But he was tired now, ready for a quiet life away from the chaos of war. "I have something for you," General Harrison continued, his expression becoming more serious. "The Zephyrian Council has sent a gift. It's their way of showing respect for your service." David raised an eyebrow. "What kind of gift?" Before the general could answer, the doors to the conference room opened. A figure walked in, and David's breath caught in his throat. She was unlike anything he had ever seen. Her skin had a soft, pearl-like glow that seemed to shift colors with each step. Her features were delicate but distinctly non-human, with large eyes that held an otherworldly intelligence. "This is Zara," the general explained. "She's a Zephyrian companion. Their people consider this the highest honor they can bestow." David stared at the alien woman, feeling deeply uncomfortable. She wore simple clothing and kept her eyes downcast, as if waiting for instructions. The whole situation made his stomach turn. "I don't understand," David said slowly. "You're giving me a person?" "It's not like that," General Harrison quickly replied. "The Zephyrian culture has companion programs. She volunteered for this position. It's considered prestigious among their people." Zara looked up at David then, and he saw something in her eyes that made him even more uneasy. There was intelligence, their curiosity, but also a kind of resigned acceptance that troubled him deeply. She spoke in broken English, her voice soft and musical. "I am honored to serve Warrior David. I have studied your culture. I will learn your ways." David felt his hands clench into fists. This was wrong. He had spent years fighting for freedom, for the right of all beings to choose their own destiny. And now they were presenting him with someone who seemed to have no choice at all. "General, I can't accept this," David said firmly. "I won't own another person." "You're not owning her," the general insisted. "Think of it as a cultural exchange. She'll learn about human society, and you can learn about Zephyrian customs. It's part of the peace process." Zara stepped forward, her skin shifting to a pale blue color. David would later learn this indicated concern or confusion in her species. "Have I displeased you, Warrior David?" she asked, her accent thick but her words careful. "I studied hard to be worthy of this honor." The pain in her voice made David's heart ache. He realized that rejecting her might cause her shame in her own culture, but accepting felt like participating in something he fundamentally opposed. David looked around the room, noting how the other officers watched the exchange with interest. Some seemed envious of his gift, while others appeared as uncomfortable as he felt. The politics of the situation were clear. Refusing could damage the fragile peace between their species. "It's not about you," David said gently to Zara. "You seem like a wonderful person. It's just complicated for me." Zara's skin shifted again, this time to a soft green. "I understand. Humans value independence, But I chose this path, Warrior David. My family, they died in the war. I had nothing left on Zephyr Prime. The companion program gave me purpose. Her words hit David like a physical blow. She wasn't just some gift being forced upon him. She was a refugee, a survivor looking for a new beginning. The situation became even more complex in his mind. General Harrison sensed David's internal struggle. Look, you don't have to decide anything permanent right now. Just give it a few weeks. Help her adjust to life here on Europa Station. You're retiring anyway, so you have time. If it doesn't work out, we'll figure something else out. David looked at Zara again. She stood straight and proud despite her obvious nervousness. There was strength in her posture that spoke of survival against terrible odds. Where would she stay? David asked reluctantly. The station has guest quarters, the general replied. Or if you prefer, she could stay in the civilian sector. David realized that whatever choice he made, it would affect this woman's future. She had traveled across the galaxy to be here, had volunteered for something she believed would bring honor to her people's memory. Sending her away might destroy whatever hope she had left. All right, David said finally, though his voice carried reluctance. But I want to make something clear, Zara. You're not my property. You're not my servant. If you're going to stay, you're a guest. You have rights, and you have choices. Zara's skin brightened to a warm golden color, and for the first time, she smiled. It was a beautiful expression that made her alien features seem more familiar somehow. Thank you, Warrior David. I will not disappoint you. As they left the command center together, David wondered what he had gotten himself into. He had fought in countless battles, negotiated with alien diplomats, and survived things that would break most people. But somehow, this felt like his biggest challenge yet. The corridors of Europa Station stretched ahead of them, filled with the promise of an uncertain future. 3 weeks had passed since Zara arrived at Europa Station, and David was still trying to figure out how to handle the situation. Every morning, he would find her waiting outside his quarters at exactly 0600 hours, ready to serve him breakfast, that she had somehow learned to prepare perfectly. It made him feel terrible. Zara, you don't need to do this, David said for the 100th time as she placed a steaming cup of coffee in front of him. I can make my own breakfast. Her skin shifted. To that pale blue color he had learned meant confusion. But this is my purpose, Warrior David. How else can I bring honor to my people's memory? David sighed and sat down across from her at the small table in his quarters. Over the past few weeks, he had moved her from the guest quarters to the room next to his, mainly because she seemed lost and afraid when left alone in the civilian sector. But he had made sure she had her own space, her own key, and complete freedom to come and go as she pleased. Tell me about your people, David said, changing the subject. He had found that getting her to talk about Zephyrian culture helped her relax. What was life like before the war? Zara's expression softened, and her skin took on a warm amber glow. My world was beautiful, Warrior David. We lived in crystal cities that sang with the wind. Our people believed in harmony above all else. We could feel each other's emotions, share joy and sadness together. She paused, her color dimming slightly. The war changed everything. Fear and anger became constant companions. Many of my people lost their ability to sense emotions because there was too much pain to bear. David leaned forward, genuinely interested. You can feel emotions? Like, read minds? Not minds, Zara said, shaking her head. Hearts. When you are sad, I feel the heaviness in your chest. When you are angry, I sense the fire in your spirit. It is why I know you are uncomfortable with me being here, even though you try to be kind. David felt heat rise to his cheeks. He had been trying so hard to hide his discomfort, but apparently he was an open book to her. I'm not uncomfortable with you, he said carefully. I'm uncomfortable with the situation. You're a person, not a gift. It doesn't feel right. Zara was quiet for a long moment, her skin cycling through different shades as she processed his words. Finally, she spoke. May I tell you why I chose this path? David nodded, settling back in his chair. I had a family once, Zara began, her voice barely above a whisper. A bonded partner and two younglings. We lived in the outer territories of Zephyr Prime, in a small community that grew healing crystals. Her skin turned a deep purple, and David felt a chill run down his spine. He had learned that purple meant deep sadness or grief. When the war came to our region, we tried to remain neutral. But neutrality meant nothing to the weapons that fell from the sky. My bonded partner threw himself over our younglings when the bombs hit. I was away, gathering supplies in the next village. David felt his throat tighten. Zara, I'm sorry. You don't have to. Please, she interrupted gently. I need you to understand. When I returned, there was nothing left. No crystal gardens, no singing cities, no family, just silence and ash. She looked directly at him, her large eyes shimmering with unshed tears that looked like liquid starlight. I wandered for months, eating scraps, sleeping in ruins. I wanted to die, Warrior David. But then the companion program was announced. They said honored warriors from both sides would be paired with Zephyrian volunteers. They said it was a chance to build bridges between our peoples. David reached across the table and gently touched her hand. Her skin was surprisingly warm, and he felt a strange tingling sensation at the contact. I studied your language for 6 months, Zara continued. I learned about human customs, your foods, your music. For the first time since the war, I had purpose again. I was chosen to serve you because of your role in the peace talks. It gave meaning to my survival. David felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. All this time, he had been thinking about his own discomfort, his own moral objections. He hadn't truly considered what this meant to her. I understand now, he said softly. But Zara, you don't have to serve me to have purpose. You're intelligent, you're strong, you survived something terrible. You could do anything you want here. Her skin brightened slightly. What do you mean? Well, David said, thinking quickly, the station needs cultural liaisons. People who can help humans and Zephyrians understand each other. You know both cultures now. You could teach, help others like yourself, who might come here looking for new lives. Zara's eyes widened. You think I could do such work? I think. You could do amazing work, David said sincerely. But first, let me teach you more about how humans really live. Not as master and servant, but as equals, as friends. Over the following days, David began showing Zara around Europa Station in a completely different way. Instead of having her follow behind him like a servant, he walked beside her as they explored the markets, the gardens, and the recreational areas. He introduced her to other station residents, both human and alien, always presenting her as his friend rather than his companion. He watched her confidence grow with each interaction. In the evenings, they would sit in his quarters and she would tell him stories about Zephyrian philosophy and art while he shared human literature and music with her. She was fascinated by human concepts of individual achievement and personal dreams. On Zephyr Prime, we always thought of the community first, she explained one night, as they listened to classical music from Earth. Individual desires were secondary to the harmony of the group. And now? David asked. Zara's skin shimmered with colors he had never seen before, like an aurora dancing across her features. Now I think perhaps both ways have value. Community and individual dreams can exist together. David found himself looking forward to these conversations more than anything else in his day. For the first time in years, he felt truly at peace. The war had left him hollow. But somehow, Zara's presence was helping him remember what it felt like to simply enjoy another person's company. He was beginning to realize that while she might have started as an unwanted responsibility, she was becoming something much more precious. She was becoming a friend, and maybe, if he was honest with himself, something even deeper than that. But he pushed those thoughts away. The situation was still too complicated, too fraught with power imbalances and cultural misunderstandings. For now, friendship was enough. As he watched Zara's skin glow with contentment while she listened to a piece by Mozart, David smiled. Whatever the future held, he was glad she was here. 2 months had changed everything between David and Zara. What started as an awkward arrangement had grown into something beautiful and unexpected. David no longer dreaded waking up each morning. Instead, he looked forward to their conversations, over breakfast, their walks through the station, and their quiet evenings sharing stories from their different worlds. Zara had blossomed during this time. Her English had improved dramatically, and she spoke with growing confidence about her ideas and dreams. She had started working part-time as a cultural advisor in the station's diplomatic wing, helping newly arrived Zephyrians adjust to human society. David watched with pride as she guided confused aliens through the complexities of human customs. "You should see her work," Dr. Chen, the station's head of cultural affairs, told David one afternoon. "She has a gift for making people feel understood. The Zephyrian refugees trust her completely." David smiled, feeling a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with pride and everything to do with something deeper he was afraid to name. That evening, as they sat in David's quarters sharing dinner, an urgent message appeared on his communication device. General Harrison's face filled the screen, looking more serious than usual. "David, I need to see you in my office immediately. There's been a development regarding your assignment status." David's stomach dropped. "Assignment status? Sir, I'm retired." "Not anymore, soldier. We'll discuss it when you get here." The connection ended, leaving David staring at a blank screen. Zara's skin had shifted to that pale blue color that meant she was picking up on his anxiety. "What is wrong, David?" she asked, reaching across the table to touch his hand. Over the past weeks, these small gestures of comfort had become natural between them. "I don't know," David replied honestly. "But I have a feeling our peaceful life here is about to change." An hour later, David sat in General Harrison's office, listening to news that made his head spin. The Terran Defense Force was establishing a new colony on Mars, specifically designed to be a joint human-Zephyrian settlement. They wanted David to serve as the military advisor for the project. "It's perfect for you," the general explained. "You understand both cultures. You have the respect of both species, and frankly, you're one of the few people both sides trust completely." David's mind raced. Mars colony would be an incredible opportunity, a chance to help build something completely new. But it would also mean leaving Europa Station, leaving the comfortable life he and Zara had built together. "What about Zara?" David asked. General Harrison raised an eyebrow. "What about her?" "She's assigned to you, David. Where you go, she goes." "She's not assigned to me," David said firmly. "She's her own person. This decision affects her life, too." The general studied David's face for a long moment. "You've grown attached to her." "She's become important to me," David admitted. "More important than I expected." When David returned to his quarters, he found Zara waiting for him, her skin cycling through worried shades of blue and purple. She looked up as he entered, her large eyes searching his face. "The news is not good," she said. It wasn't a question. Her empathic abilities had already told her everything she needed to know about his emotional state. David sat down beside her on the small couch they had moved into his quarters a few weeks earlier. Without thinking, he took her hands in his. They had become comfortable with these small intimacies, though neither had spoken about what they might mean. "I've been offered a position on Mars colony," David said. "It's a joint human-Zephyrian settlement. They want me to help establish it." Zara's skin brightened slightly. That sounds like important work. You would be building bridges between our peoples, just as you did with the peace treaty. I would, David agreed. But Zara, I need you to know that this is your choice. You don't have to come with me. You've built a life here. You have work you love, friends you've made. I won't make this decision for you. Zara was quiet for a long moment, her skin shifting through various shades as she processed her emotions. Finally, she looked directly at him. May I ask you something, David? Of course. These past months, have you been happy? The question caught him off guard. David thought about it seriously. Despite everything that had brought them together, despite the complications and the uncertainty, he had been happier than he could remember being in years. Yes, he said softly. Happier than I've been since before the war. I have been happy too, Zara said, her skin taking on a warm golden glow. For the first time since I lost my family, I have felt whole again. Not because I was serving a purpose, but because I was sharing life with someone who saw me as more than just a refugee or a companion. David felt his heart skip a beat. They were approaching territory they had both been carefully avoiding, but it felt natural, inevitable. Zara, he began, but she placed a gentle finger against his lips. Let me finish, she said with a smile. I want to go to Mars Colony with you. Not because I am assigned to you, not because it is my duty, but because I cannot imagine building a new life anywhere else. You have become my family, David. David felt something break open in his chest, a dam of emotions he had been holding back for weeks. You've become my family too, he whispered. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, hands intertwined, both understanding that something fundamental had shifted between them. They were no longer soldier and companion, or even just friends. They were partners, choosing to face an uncertain future together. There's something else, David said eventually. Mars Colony won't be easy. We'll face challenges from people who don't understand our relationship, who might question whether what we have is real. Zara's skin brightened with determination. Let them question. I know what is in my heart, and I can feel what is in yours. What we have built together is stronger than their doubts. David squeezed her hands gently. Then we'll face it together. As they began making plans for their new adventure, David realized that what had started as an uncomfortable obligation had become the greatest gift of his life. Not because Zara had been given to him, but because they had chosen each other. The future on Mars Colony would bring new challenges, but for the first time in years, David was excited about what lay ahead. Whatever came next, they would meet it as partners, as equals, and as something more precious than either had dared to hope for. Outside their window, the stars seemed brighter than usual, as if the universe itself was celebrating their decision to build something beautiful together. 6 months on Mars Colony had been the happiest time of David's life. He and Zara had settled into their new roles perfectly. David worked as a military advisor, helping establish security protocols for the growing settlement, while Zara had become the head of cultural integration, helping both humans and Zephyrians adapt to their shared community. Their relationship had grown stronger with each passing day. They lived together now, not as master and servant, but as true partners. Zara's laugh filled their small apartment each evening, and David found himself smiling more than he had in decades. But their peaceful existence was about to be shattered. It started at the colony's first major diplomatic gathering. Governor Walsh had organized a formal dinner to celebrate 6 months of successful cooperation between the two species. David and Zara attended together, dressed in their finest clothes, representing the success of human-Zephyrian partnership. The trouble began when Commander Brooks, a newly arrived human officer, noticed them sitting together at the head table. "Isn't that the soldier who got the alien companion?" Brooks whispered loudly to his companion. Look how she fawns over him. No different from a well-trained pet, if you ask me." David's jaw tightened, but Zara placed a calming hand on his arm. Her skin had shifted to a controlled silver color, showing she was managing her emotions carefully. "Ignore them," she whispered. "Their words cannot change what we know to be true." But the whispers spread throughout the evening. David heard fragments of conversations as they moved through the crowd. Some humans questioned whether their relationship was genuine or just the result of Zara's conditioning as a companion. Others wondered if David was taking advantage of someone who had no real choice in the matter. The Zephyrian guests were equally judgmental, though for different reasons. Elder Keth, a respected leader in the Zephyrian community, approached them. Near the end of the evening, "Young Zara," he said in their native language, his tone disapproving. "You forget your duties to your people. The companion program was meant to honor fallen warriors, not provide entertainment for humans." Zara responded in Zephyrian, her voice steady but her skin betraying her distress with flashes of purple. David couldn't understand the words, but he could feel the tension radiating from both of them. After Elder Keth walked away, Zara translated quietly. "He believes I have abandoned my cultural responsibilities. He says I should remember that I am here to serve, not to love." David felt anger burning in his chest, but before he could respond, Governor Walsh approached them with a forced smile. "David, Zara, wonderful to see you both. Could I have a word privately?" They followed the governor to his office, where his expression became much more serious. "I'll be direct," Walsh said. "Your relationship is becoming a problem. Some of the human colonists are questioning whether this whole integration project is working if our leaders are, well, let's say, getting too involved with the aliens." "Too involved?" David repeated, his voice dangerously quiet. "And the Zephyrian Council has sent word," Walsh continued. "They're concerned about the companion program's reputation. They want assurance that their people are fulfilling their intended roles." David stood up abruptly. "Zara is not fulfilling any role except the one she chooses. She's a free person making her own decisions." "That's not how others see it," Walsh replied. "Look, I'm not saying I agree with them, but perception matters in politics. Maybe it would be better if you kept your personal life more private." That night, David and Zara sat in their apartment, both feeling the weight of the evening's events. Zara had been unusually quiet since they returned home, her skin a muted gray color that David had learned meant deep sadness. "Maybe they're right," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "Right about what?" David asked, moving to sit beside her on their couch. "Maybe I am just a well-trained companion who thinks she's in love. Maybe I don't really have free will. How would I know the difference?" David felt his heart break at the pain in her voice. "Zara, look at me." She turned to face him, her large eyes filled with doubt and hurt. "Do you remember when we first met?" David asked gently. "You were resigned, dutiful, but there was no joy in your eyes. Now look at yourself. You laugh. You argue with me when you disagree. You have your own opinions about everything from colony policies to Earth music. That's not conditioning. That's growth. That's freedom." "But what if—" "No," David interrupted firmly. "I won't let them poison what we have with their doubts. I know who you are, Zara. You're the strongest person I've ever met. You survived a war, rebuilt your life from nothing, and chose to open your heart again after losing everything. That takes courage that no amount of conditioning could create." Zara's skin began to brighten slightly, but the doubt remained in her eyes. The situation got worse over the following weeks. A group of human colonists petitioned to have David removed from his position, claiming his judgment was compromised. The Zephyrian Council sent increasingly stern messages about the proper role of companions in human society. Everything came to a head when a Zephyrian ship arrived unannounced at Mars' colony. Elder Voss, the head of the Companion Council, had come personally to address what he called the situation. David watched from his office window as the imposing Zephyrian leader disembarked, surrounded by ceremonial guards. His skin was an authoritative deep blue, and even from a distance, David could feel the power radiating from him. That afternoon, Voss demanded a meeting with Governor Walsh, David, and Zara. The conference room felt tense as they gathered around the table. "The companion program is sacred to our people," Voss began, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. "It honors our war dead and strengthens bonds between our species. But reports have reached us that this arrangement has become corrupted." He looked directly at Zara. "You were sent to serve, to learn, and to represent the best of Zephyrian culture. Instead, you have forgotten your place and confused gratitude with affection." Zara's skin flashed angry red for just a moment, before she controlled herself. "With respect, Elder Voss, I have not forgotten anything. I have learned that there are many ways to honor our people's memory." "By abandoning your duties?" Voss demanded. "By pretending to be equal to your human master?" "I am equal to him," Zara said quietly, but with steel in her voice. "And he is not my master. We are partners." Voss's skin darkened further. "Impossible. The human has clearly manipulated your emotions. You will return to Zephyr Prime immediately for reconditioning." David shot to his feet. "She's not going anywhere she doesn't choose to go." "This is not your decision, human," Voss replied coldly. "She belongs to her people." "I belong to no one," Zara said, standing as well. "I am a free being, making my own choices." The room fell silent. David could see Governor Walsh looking uncomfortable, clearly torn between diplomatic necessity and what was right. Elder Voss studied Zara for a long moment, then spoke in Zephyrian. Whatever he said made Zara's skin flash through a dozen different colors in rapid succession. "What did he say?" David demanded. Zara's voice was shaky when she answered. "He said that if I refuse to return, the Zephyrian Council will withdraw from the colony project entirely. All our people will be recalled. The peace treaty itself could be at risk." David felt the world spinning around him. Everything they had worked for, everything they had built together was being threatened because they had dared to find happiness. "You have until tomorrow to decide," Elder Voss announced. "Choose wisely, companion. The fate of two worlds may rest on your obedience." As the Zephyrian leader left the room, David and Zara stood together, facing the most difficult decision of their lives. Their love was being used as a weapon against everything they believed in. That night, they held each other close, both knowing that their world was about to change forever. David woke up to find Zara's side of the bed empty. Panic shot through him as he searched their small apartment, calling her name. She was nowhere to be found, but he discovered a note written in her careful handwriting on their kitchen table. "My dearest David," it read, "I cannot let our love destroy the peace between our peoples. By the time you read this, I will be speaking to the Colonial Council. If I must sacrifice our happiness to save countless lives, then that is what I must do. Please forgive me, and know that every moment we shared was real. Your heart gave me a reason to live again." David dressed quickly and ran through the colony's corridors toward the main assembly hall. His mind raced with fear and anger. After everything they had been through, was Zara really going to give up on them? He burst through the doors of the assembly hall to find a crowd gathered. At the center, Zara stood before a panel that included Governor Walsh, Elder Voss, and several other human and Zephyrian officials. Her skin was a brilliant silver. The color he had learned meant absolute determination. "The companion program was created with good intentions," Zara was saying, her voice carrying clearly through the hall. "It was meant to honor our war dead and build bridges between our species. But somewhere along the way, it became something else." Elder Voss leaned forward, his own skin darkening with displeasure. You speak out of turn, companion. Your role is to serve, not to lecture your elders. My role, Zara replied firmly, is whatever I choose it to be. I am not a child, Elder Voss. I am a survivor of war, a contributor to this colony, and a free being capable of making my own decisions. David pushed through the crowd, but Zara caught his eye and shook her head slightly. She needed to do this, herself. You claim to love this human, Elder Voss continued, but how can we trust feelings that may have been forced upon you by the very nature of your position? Because, Zara said, her skin beginning to glow with warmth. I can prove it. She turned to address the entire assembly. I know that many of you question whether my feelings are real. Humans wonder if I am simply a well-conditioned servant. Zephyrians wonder if I have abandoned my cultural duties. But I am about to do something that no conditioned companion would ever do. The hall fell completely silent. I formally resign from the companion program, Zara announced. I renounce any official connection to the Zephyrian Council's cultural exchange initiative. I choose to remain on Mars Colony as a free citizen, making my own way in the world. Gasps echoed through the crowd. Elder Voss's skin flashed to an angry red. Impossible, he declared. You cannot simply abandon your responsibilities. I'm not abandoning anything, Zara replied calmly. I'm choosing something better. I'm choosing a life where my value isn't determined by how well I serve others, but by what I contribute as an equal member of society. She looked directly at David, her skin shimmering with all the colors of a sunset. And yes, I choose to continue building a life with David Rodriguez, not because I was programmed to serve him, not because he saved me from a terrible fate, but because we found something rare and precious together. We found partnership, respect, and love. Governor Walsh cleared his throat. Elder Voss, what is the Zephyrian Council's response to this unprecedented situation? The Zephyrian leader was quiet for a long moment, his skin cycling through various shades as he processed what had happened. Finally, he spoke. In all the years of the companion program, no one has ever formally resigned. He looked at Zara with what might have been respect. It is unexpected. Maybe it shouldn't be, came a voice from the crowd. David turned to see Dr. Elara, another Zephyrian who worked in the colony's medical center. She stepped forward, her skin glowing with courage. I, too, was a companion once, paired with a human doctor on Earth, Dr. Elara continued. I stayed in the program for 2 years, learning and serving. But eventually, I realized I wanted more. I wanted to practice medicine, to save lives, to be valued for my mind rather than my service. More murmurs rippled through the crowd as other Zephyrians began to step forward. David watched in amazement as one by one, former companions shared their stories. Some had found love, others had discovered new careers, but all had eventually chosen paths different from what the program originally intended. We are not betraying our culture, Dr. Elara said to Elder Voss. We are evolving it. The companion program served its purpose in the early days of peace, but now our peoples know each other better. We can build relationships based on choice rather than obligation. Elder Voss looked around the room, seeing the faces of Zephyrians and humans alike, all watching to see how he would respond. David could see the internal struggle playing out in the changing colors of his skin. Finally, the elder spoke. Perhaps it is time for the companion program to evolve as well. The crowd began to buzz with excitement, but Elder Voss raised a hand for silence. However, he continued, if the program is to change, it must be done properly, with input from both species. We cannot simply abandon all structure. Governor Walsh leaned forward. What do you propose? A new agreement, Elder Voss said slowly. one that recognizes the companion's right to choose their own paths after a period of cultural exchange, one that celebrates partnerships formed by choice rather than assignment. David felt his heart soar as he realized what this meant. Not just for him and Zara, but for countless others who might follow in their footsteps. Zara walked over to him, her skin radiating joy in brilliant gold and silver patterns. "We did it," she whispered as he pulled her into his arms. "You did it," David corrected. "You were braver than I ever could have been." 6 months later, David and Zara stood before their friends and colleagues in Mars Colony's beautiful crystal garden, a space they had helped design together. Governor Walsh performed the ceremony, officially recognizing their partnership under both human and Zephyrian law. Zara wore a traditional Zephyrian bonding gown that shifted colors with her emotions, while David wore his dress uniform with Zephyrian symbols of partnership embroidered on the sleeves. As they exchanged vows, her skin glowed with such intense happiness that several people in the audience wiped away tears. "You saved me," David said during his vows, "not because you were assigned to, but because you chose to open your heart to a broken soldier who had forgotten how to hope." "And you saw me," Zara replied, her voice thick with emotion. "Not as a gift or a servant, but as a person worthy of love and respect. You gave me back my voice." After the ceremony, Elder Voss approached them. His relationship with Zara had grown warmer over the months as they worked together to reform the companion program. "You have done something remarkable," he told them. "The new partnership protocols are being implemented across 12 colonies. Hundreds of former companions are now choosing their own paths, and our peoples are stronger for it." "It wasn't just us," Zara replied. "It was everyone who had the courage to speak up, to demand better." David looked around at the celebration surrounding them. Humans and Zephyrians danced together under the stars. Their children played in mixed groups, and the air was filled with laughter and music from both worlds. "So what's next for us?" David asked Zara as they swayed together to the soft music. Zara's skin shimmered with contentment and excitement. "We build the life we choose," she said, "together as equals, as partners. We prove every day that love based on choice is stronger than any program or arrangement could ever be." As the twin moons of Mars rose overhead, casting their silver light over the celebration, David held his wife close and marveled at the journey that had brought them here. What had started as an uncomfortable obligation had become the greatest love story of his life, and it was only the beginning.